Hello everyone, today's video will have a lot of passionate scenes, because I will tell the story of a 16-year-old boy who enters a society of spoiled women. A boy arrives in the village for a vacation. When the boy arrives, he is greeted by Mrs. Miller, his mother and aunt, as well as his sister Bertha. The boy goes out for a walk again and sees Mrs. Miller again, while the servants gather fruit for their lady to deliver in time. The servant raises the hem of his shirt and casually defecates next to the boy before the harvest. The young man widened his eyes in surprise, took the basket from the new one and went for a walk in the garage. In the forest among the trees of his land, Muller's husband was conducting a ritual to awaken his tool, and he noticed that someone approached him. The boy is startled by this and runs through the trees as if rushing to his wife in labor, but in his haste he stumbles and falls to the ground and hears a woman laughing nearby. The boy looks down to find Ursula, the maid, singing while she sweats. After being greeted by the maid, the boy hurries to leave as quickly as possible because the maid Ursula is having an affair with someone there. The child's mother constantly monitors the behavior of people in the house, so she always reminds everyone how to behave politely at the table. A maid named Kate asks permission to escort the little girl to her room as it is time to put her to bed. When they left, the young man also pretended to want to sleep. Then he asks his mother for permission to go to bed. On the way to sleep, the boy hears the clatter of dishes in the corridor, looks out of the room. He sees the maid Elena half bent from the room because someone is tied behind the girl. After a while, Elena manages to take the tea. The next day, the boy's father also arrives there. The father owns a factory that produces military accessories, and in peacetime people like him complain that they have to live on water and bread, although competitors do not hesitate to make orders and medals for the Germans, who after a few days will gradually take over Europe. A day later, the young man meets Bertha, who spied on the servants there, who takes her brother to the monastery. Women in the estate always go there for recognition. So, this time Margarita came to the monastery and confessed that her aunt was born. The boy hears that she has been with all kinds of men and starts crawling closer to him, but he can't bear her weight and falls down. The young man confessed to his aunt that he was listening to other people's secrets, and was promised a punishment in the form of a beating. Meanwhile, Lisa's husband returns from the front. As soon as he hears footsteps in the evening corridor, he looks out again, because this time he notices that someone is holding Helen and someone is beginning to treat her as before. After a while, a servant comes out of the room. Also, the child climbs to the tent where the local astronomer's telescope is located, where he begins to observe the surroundings with the help of a telescope. The boy found a servant there watching those engaged in passionate scenes under the moon. Here, next to the boy, lies a small book of the Kama Sutra on the minimum wage, which the boy steals and hides with it in the chicken coop. The young man begins to study the Kama Sutra there, but one of the workers interrupts his study of the book. Helen looks out the window into the chicken coop and scatters food for the birds. The worker approaches her, traps the woman and does the first thing that comes to mind. One day, a boy servant follows Miller, and Miller asks her husband to go outside as he prays for the end of the war. The boy's plan doesn't work this time, because the news of Germany's war against France is heard from the street. This is a good sign for the father of the child. Because his factory begins to produce large quantities of metals and orders, which will bring him good profits. All men are sent to the front. Ursula asks the townspeople for help as the boy's mother allows the servants to move into the boy's house after the men are gone. Ursula knows what the boy wants and does not resist it. While taking a bath, the young man hears the nanny Kate's song. The girl heard about the boy's adventures, so she invites the boy to her as soon as he lifts her skirt. In the evening, Elena comes to the young man's room with tea, because all the men have gone to the front, to the maid. No one else in the corridor calls him to do dirty work anymore, so he comes up to the guy and starts pointing at him in every way. After the boy's words, the babysitter just wants to leave, but as soon as the guy crosses the threshold, he gives her the passionate scene she needs. The next day, the young man sees his stepsister riding a horse to the stables, and follows her there. The hot boy starts to undress her, the woman resists, but the woman calms down as Miller enters the stable, after which the woman herself jumps the stallion, because there are none of the men on the estate to do the woman's bidding. As the men are absent, the maids leave the rooms as the evening begins and make their way to the room of the newly arrived head of the family. After Ursula and Alinka, the boy's aunt Margarita also runs after a share of the cake, and after a while Lisa tells her that she is pregnant with her brother, This very heated conversation is interrupted by the noise of the engine of the plane flying towards them. Meanwhile, Lisa's husband returns from the war. In addition, former employees with various injuries also begin to return from the war. In the evening, Ursula enters the young man's room and informs the young man that she is pregnant. The guy advises her that she should marry someone to get out of this problem. After Ursula leaves, the young man's aunt Margarita comes to him with the same news. The young man's one right decision convinces other women who get pregnant from him to marry the men there. The young man's aunt sees him having sex with a farm worker through a telescope, and he and his nanny leave red paint on the bed. The boy tells his stepsister that she needs to sleep with a man so they can blame her for the pregnancy. The boy's vacation time is over and it's time for him to go back to the city to study. Taking a suitcase with the guy's belongings, he meets Elena, who managed to get pregnant. The servant should marry quickly like everyone else, but he doesn't want to. When the young man finishes packing, he gets into the car and says goodbye to the child and all the pregnant women. At this time, the screenings for the film will end. Thanks for watching and see you in the next videos.